Ciao everybody, this is Alberto from Ciao. I'm from STUDIOKOM from Italy. We are a consultancy firm helping small, medium businesses to open new markets on the international environment. So some people may know me as the export manager to ZENATO Wineries from Valpolicella, but in this case, I'm the moderator of this live talk show about wine, of course, and about wine in Europe, Asia. So Eurasia is the name of the talk show. Today we are gonna talk with some of the most interesting wine operators on the market. So we will start with Pierre Courdurié, who is a producer from Bordeaux. Is gonna tell us the market situation about Bordeaux wines in Asia in this moment, and is incredible. I really can't wait to hear from him. Then we are going to switch to Nadia Zenato. Nadia, of course, Zenato is one of the most important historical families in Valpolicella. And Nadia is definitely an eclectic and disruptive personality. She's going to bring us through all the marketing strategies that they are doing now. And always done, because they are very active in doing branding, and she's gonna show us how to react to this situation with good ideas and partnerships. And then we go to Emma Gao. Oh wow, we are talking about definitely one of the most interesting wine phenomenon in China, and she's gonna tell us how the Chinese traditions and the philosophy and their approach to harmony can be put into wine, and this is something phenomenal. And then Sheetal Kadam, she's a wine journalist from India, and India, of course, is rich in natural environment. We are talking about a long history, religions, and everything that all of us may know just a little bit, but she will tell us how in this incredible environment premium wine can be done with success. That's very interesting. Ciao, Sheetal. And at the end, last but definitely not least, we are gonna have Natalie Wang from Hong Kong, from VINO JOY News, and she's going to share with us like an outline on the wine market in Asia in her own way, because she's gonna be straight. So very interesting. I definitely can't wait to hear from her. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Just a quick instruction. So please use the chat only for interaction, and then for any question you want to ask to panelists, please use the Q&A button on the toolbar that you find on your screen. Okay. So please, the panelists who are not going to talk, please mute. And I pass the ball to Pierre. And
Hi, good morning.
Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, guys. Very happy to share with you this quite unusual Zoom conference through the world. So very happy to share different ideas and comments and philosophy regarding Asian market. So just to briefly introduce you who we are. So my wife Axel and I are the owners and winemakers of CHâTEAU CROIX DE LABRIE. So we based in Bordeaux, Right Bank, Saint-Emilion, small boutique winery, all handcrafted, 100% organic and biodynamic estate. So just to, this is our wine here. So Asian market is quite for us, and even for Bordeaux, generally speaking, a very important market. And there is no market which are not important at all, but Asia, China, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia are very strong for Bordeaux. And even if those days we've seen all of us regarding the situation with the COVID, which has put some markets slow down and some other really down. But we faced still a strong belief on Asian market, where we have strong histories on Bordeaux wines. If we look on Bordeaux, especially the market of the great wines and the Grand Vin, we saw that Europe, United States of America, and Asia has always been important for our market. And like if we look what's happening today, since last week, from Bordeaux, we are releasing the Imprimeur 2019 vintage, where most of the trade was saying it's going to be tricky, not so many interests on the 2019. But in fact, we saw that there is a big interest on the vintage. So even today, actually, I'm receiving some release letters on great wines, and we, Croix de Labrie, we will release tomorrow morning European time. So that's going to be afternoon time for Asia.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So yes, and I think China, we saw in Bordeaux that the Chinese market, if we talk about a little bit about China, we saw a kind of slowdown in regarding economic matters. Also, we face competition, but we face competition with Italian wines, but mostly from Australia and other countries where they don't have tariffs. And we in Europe, we have for both, I think, Italy, Spain and France, and even Bordeaux, we face around 40% tax on tariffs. So indeed, for a market like China, which is an increasing market, we saw the demand is still increasing on great wines, but for some wines that are retailing in Europe, I would say on 5 and 10 euros. On the Asian market and China market, this segment of market, it's tough. It's really tough for us. And we see the strong competition from the New World, from Chile, Argentina, and Australia in this segment of the market. But for the great wines of Bordeaux, the Grand Cru, or even us, we saw that since some years, the market is step by step increasing, but not as fast as it was increasing before. Maybe because there is more wines in the country, but also there is wine production in China with, I'm for sure, great terroir that will come over, and Chinese customers are keen to discover plenty of other wines. So I think it's Bordeaux to have maybe a better philosophy on teaching wines and educate the customer for what we do in France. But generally speaking, we saw a strong interest still in Bordeaux, because Bordeaux, we have the chance to have quite some strong brands for mainly basics, but also on the Grand Cru level, and people are still interesting. Few people are still interesting for that, but most of the customers, they are getting more educated on wine tasting, and all we see on the long-term basis for this market specifically, definitely a development, an increase on that.
And what do you do exactly to pop up? I mean, just to because you are like a kind of boutique winery from Bordeaux, and in a country where there is a very strong awareness of Bordeaux in general, and this is positive from one side, but can be a struggle from the other. So what do you do? Because I saw that your image is pretty is interesting. Your website is fantastic. It's one of the best I visited recently, and also the way that you do communication is very nice. So let us understand what do you exactly do
I think communication is it's part of our culture today, and specifically since those last 6 months. It started earlier in Asia, but as most of the customers have to stay home to face this confinement, communication is something that my father and my grandfather don't understand that. Truly not. For them, it's something, wow, internet and things that's... But nowadays, customers are traveling. You see today we are sharing ideas, and you are in India, Hong Kong, China, Italy, Europe. So the world is just next door. And
one click away.
I think the communication is has to be a strong part of a brand building. It's something that you cannot miss anymore. It's not only producing great wines. Of course, we try every year to produce great vintages because we have the chance where we are located in Saint-Emilion to be a super and top terroir. But beside that, we need to touch the customer. And at the end of the day, it's only the customer who decides.
Yeah, clear. And
so for me, I think the customer is part of the family. So you need to have tools. So the tools are, we travel a lot. We try to travel to Asia, but not only China. We go to Hong Kong, we go to Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Australia. We go everywhere. But I think today for a small boutique winery, we sell our wines in 44 countries today. And we are producing on Château CROIX DE LABRIE around 1,000 cases a year. So that's, let's say, 12,000 bottles production for all the world.
Oh, fantastic. And you are 100% organic, and you do also biodynamic. So what is the perception of these two elements in Asia?
That's a good question. I think in Asia, Hong Kong market is much more in advance, like Singapore, Philippines, Japan are much more keen, even if customers are aware of biodynamic estate and organic, but they are much more keen on that because they are following the trend from Westerns, and they have also New Zealand and Australia coming over in the back of that. China, customers are now starting to understand this because some brands and more wineries, I think, and I hope, are turning to green. And I think this is a trend that has to at least come to, certified or not certified, but I think people are changing their minds on winemaking.
I believe so.
So far, I think the customers are much more minded and open mind regarding this, but because also the offer is wider and they're getting much more educated. It's always a question of education.
Yeah, of course. I also I believe that this pandemic is somehow changed the sensitiveness of people regarding what is natural. So is this can
that's true.
So maybe this is gonna be an opportunity for users. Those who are already in this, who are already sensitive to this, because like you, I mean, it's not just something that you can just start, okay, now it's a trend, let's just take advantage of it. So it's very good.
I think the pandemic and this situation has changed some ways on talking to people.
Yeah, clear, exactly. And okay, I want to now to hear Nadia because when talking to people, I believe that she's so communicative and also she has so many ideas. So I would like to understand how she and ZENATO in general they are like doing new ideas and Nadia, thanks for joining us and. Please tell us about what you're doing.
Thank you, Alberto. I am so excited to be a part of this important panel. really here in my cellar, so in where we age in particular our top wines, Amarone and Lugana Riserva Sergio Zenato. We are in two important regions, so one in Valpolicella, one in Lugana, where we produce our white and red wines as Amarone, Valpolicella, Ripassa, and some Crus. And yes, you say that we, in the last 20 years, the marketing also in Italy is changed a lot, in particular marketing, digital marketing. And so for us, the important is to transmit our passion, our craftsmanship, creativity, quality are the initial materials and attention, the details of the marketing. So for us, it's important when our people, our consumer, taste the wine is not only transmit the quality, but also the emotions. So something about the beauty, authenticity, identify of behind of the label. And so we, in the last 10 years, we try also some different. So we start with co-branding with some important fashion, but also in design. You are that in Italy, most important craftsmanship is in design and in fashion. And so we try to do something very unique with an important fashion producer, Alberto Recupero, where also he sell a lot in Asia market, where there is an event very, very important. It's called La Vendemmia in Via Monte Napoleone. And we we collaborate with this important brand to promote our wines in this special event. Not only in Milano, in one of the most important streets in Via Monte Napoleone, but also in Via Condotti in Roma, where the brand of a fashion as Alberto Ferretti together with our wine. And this was a very important event where we represent our Cru wines, and at the same time also we do some tasting where we can taste the wine and we can talk about the authenticity, about our passion, about our creativity. And another important co-branding partners that we release, and behind me there is an important collection that we created together with an important producer from Tuscany. It's called Opinion Chatti, the name of a farm. And this is a particular of a special design that we decided to create together because this producer do some library, so where you can put only the important books, and we decided together to create this special design for only 4 bottles. And so we promote the same values of tradition, creativity, as well as craftsmanship, fashion, and style. And we propose this special design at the Salone del Mobile. You know that every year in Milano there is an important event with Salone del Mobile, and we promote this particular Pitolomeo wine used for the ZENATO wine bottle for this official presentation during the Salone del Mobile and also our important exhibition at Vinitaly, where we transform this object in a strong decorative character. So, and all of the communication of Ptolomeo wine, Vino, are connected with our wine labels from our website and our catalog. We used our Factis bottles, so in this moment we have our bottle of Ripassa, and are even showcases in select furniture store in different countries around the world. So this is an important co-branding that we promote together around the world. This is in the same time, you know that I love fashion, I love design, so I created also my own jewelry, where you know, I like the wine, is my passion. So, but this is something where I try to develop in my collection of accessory, as always been a big dream of mine. And so it was born from the love of the land where I was raised. The colors and the scent of the countryside, the texture of the materials, and the harmony of the natural forms. So I collected the bottle caps. I don't know if you can see from our wines.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I embellished it with diamonds, zircons, you know, sapphire, and transform in a very important yellows.
Wow.
So this is I try to translate the passion, the enthusiasm into my work, which I think is very important in a sector like ours, and is also is essential to convey emotion, to keep up our business image.
Yeah, you're right.
It's the same.
Now, what is amazing is, okay, because ZENATO, for those maybe one or two in the world that doesn't know this brand, but is one of the most traditional winery, because historical, not traditional. But what is amazing is how you can have from one side the tradition of one of the oldest winemaking area in the world, with this very modern approach. So combining art, design, and jewelry, and this is amazing. Also because I believe that the let's say the target customer that you are communicating to is the same of the jewelry, the art, and the design, and very good, very interesting. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And so when we and our wines with the designer Alberto Ferretti, with our clothes, opinionciati with their own design object, bring our brands around the world. So we do not just promote the products, but also the ideas, values, also our lifestyle, because you know that Italian lifestyle is so important, you know, the people like, and so this is really appreciated all over the world. And I believe, and I truly believe that this is our strength, that we should focus on even more. So this is levers are always important, as the drive economical growth of the whole country.
Very good, very good. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nadia. It was really, I really amazed by your presentation, and I think that you're great, you're doing a great job. So Emma, now it's your turn. I am so anxious to hear you because I truly love your wine. And also because I am looking at the Chinese production with a lot of attention. And so I really would like to understand your philosophy, your ideas. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Alberto and Margot, for invitation. Hi, everyone. So allow me introduce myself. I'm Emma Gao from SILVERHEIGHTS of the region of Ningxia, in the north of China, close to Inner Mongolia. If I could share my screen with you to share some pictures of our vineyard and our story.
Okay, if you need any help. Okay, oh, fantastic. Oh, super good. Super good.
So we are a family boutique winery practicing biodynamic culture. I do Tai Chi every morning. So Chinese traditional medicine and Tai Chi taught me that here is a parallel between the biodynamic practice and Chinese culture. So here's ancient Chinese 24 solar terms, which we has a long history using this philosophy for farming practice and ritual practice. So with all the harmony with the moon and the stars. The 24 solar terms correspond to exact 15-degree segment of the Earth orbit around the sun. It's like a constellation system. I'm not going to deep on this. So this is what we plant some herbs for compost fermentation. So why biodynamic? Biodynamics, I think it's first of all, we taste one better. It's make the one more fitness and the sense of specific terroir can show. Then it's more healthy. It's possible to reduce artificial additive like commercial yeast, enzyme, finding product. It's more about the sophistical terroir and authenticity, yes. And it's also respect the ecosystem to improve soil structure and make better rooting and the microbiological activity in the soil, and also can make better balance of growth of the vineyard. So we have planted 70 hectares vineyard, also some trees and food around the vineyard with some animals. This create one environment to distribute the diversity. We have the birds, also some little animals can come and live with us. So every morning you can hear the birds or doggies crying, screaming of the ducks and the bees, some bugs. All this can create one balanced environment to make a natural ecosystem. The preparation of the biodynamics, for example, for now, it's during the flowering in our vineyard. So we're doing the yarrow flower. This can allow the better bloom, then in the future make elegant wine. Then after this, we should apply to horn silica spray for stopping the growing, for discourage the growing of the vine vigor, then focus for production of the fruit and the maturity of fruit. A lot of people asking me why corn? It's so bizarre to put the manure in the corn and then bury it in the ground for 6 months, then you spray in the vineyard. How it can work? Actually, in Chinese history, we see a proverb that 心有灵犀一点通, that we have heart beating in harmony, even we're far away, if you have a corn. Also, beer corn in Chinese medicine, it can help people when they have weak, healthy. Then even in Chinese, old people telling that we have our head, some angles, meaning you have a talent for something, for language or for mathematics. So corn is really something powerful to connection to the universe to give a lot of energy. Yes. So let me introduce where we come from. So China has 6 appellations. Hebei, Shandong, where is a big brand like Great Wall, Changyu Dynasty. Then Shanxi, you have Grace Vineyard. Ningxia in the north middle, where I come from. I'm very proud of it. Then Xinjiang, close to Tibet, it's a big raisin production area. Then Yunnan in the south. Ningxia is the most famous wine region in China, and also a concentration of a lot of quality wineries because of diversity of the climate and unique climate and the soil diversity. its altitude is 1,200 meters. Then its concentration on sunshine and cool and strong breeze. Cool and strong breeze to rest the grapes, the vine trees after the sunshine whole day for the maturity. Then the soil contributes to over centuries from the flooding of the river, of Yellow River. Also as well, the glacier runoff. So we have diverse type of site on this earth. So this is our baby Chardonnay. Then we have also Cabernet Sauvignon blend wines like Bordeaux. We try also Pinot Noir and Marcelin. This is a little bit picture showing our terroir kind of stones. And my father, very proud, standing on the stone he picked up from the vineyard, river stones, you can see. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Oh, fantastic. Really, really interesting. Also because, you know, when talking about China and wine produced in China, maybe those who are not really familiar with this do not really get that there are some areas where the nature is amazing and is so rich, and it's a perfect environment where to produce excellent wine, especially when this environment meets somebody who is so passionate and so talented as Emma. So it's thanks for sharing your experience, and I hope that somebody in the audience will find the will to taste your wines as well. And okay, let's move to another incredible area of the world, which is India. So Sheetal Kadam, please join us and share your experience with us.
Yes, so it's a great pleasure for me to be on this wine talk show, Alberto, and all the other panelists. It's awesome to hear all of you. And for me to present the Indian wine industry scenario here is an immense, super pleasure. So as a wine journalist from India, I think what is more attractive about Indian wine industry is that the wine is getting more popular in India, and it is steadily gaining the acceptance in the consumers' minds as well. India is not a wine drinking country at all. I mean, culturally also, traditionally also, we know that. There have been a lot of phases in Indian wine, in Indian history also. Since Indus civilization, India is known for producing grapes, but not for making wines. We were making wines to some extent. Some drink that was close to wine, that is called as drakshasa in Ayurveda. It means, so it was used because of its medicinal purposes. It had a bit of alcohol content in it. It was made from grapes, but then it was used as an appetizer or as a cough syrup. That's it. I mean, it was just a medicinal purpose. Then during the Mughal rule in India, all the wines, the small production, even as a medicinal purpose, was banned. Later on, again, during the British rule, they introduced, especially the Portuguese, they introduced and the British even they introduced the wine of making to India. But post the independence, there were different states, and because of the religious reasons also, it was the wine was abandoned in many of the states. And yes, because before that, even the phylloxera that came, that really was devastating, and that really was a bad news for wine industry. I mean, grape grape growing across the world, and same was the case in India. And even today, there are certain states in India, like Gujarat for the sake, or Uttar Pradesh. So I'm going to show you a map of India here.
Yes, please.
So if you can see there.
Anyway, in general, you were mentioning that, you know, of course, it's not a wine drinking country, but yeah. But anyway, you know, wine is also a cultural product. And so when a cultural product meet an area, a country with a long history of culture, so talking about everything, talking about philosophy, talking about religion, talking about literature, you know. So I believe that is the perfect soil where to seed, you know.
Yes.
And
yes.
So I'm really confident that it's gonna grow as a trend.
Thanks so much for such kind words. And I think so. As I said, India always was good in producing grapes, growing grapes. But then we use roughly 2 to 3% of those grapes for wine making. I mean, farmers in India, producers in India are still experimenting more on making the international varieties adaptable in Indian terroir. And so here's a map in front of us, which shows, so this is the state by the name Maharashtra, and this produces 90% of wine of the total, out of the total country, total India's production. So Maharashtra is 90% shareholder in that. In Maharashtra, we have Nasik, which is the wine capital of India, which is the epicenter of India, which produces 80% of wine. Okay. Then this area is Pune district. These are smaller districts. So again, around this Pune region is are very famous wineries by the name Fratelli. They produce Italian style wines here. And the second largest wine producing region in India is Karnataka. So this state is Karnataka. And so Nandi Hills, basically around the outskirts of Bangalore, is the region where the climate is more milder and cooler and favorable for the wine production as well. So these are the two major wine regions of India. Now we have Tamil Nadu, we have Punjab and Kashmir as well, wherein a bit of wine production is seen. But as I said, the major countries, the major regions are Nasik and the Maharashtra and Karnataka. Now, the climate that we face is the tropical climate. So it means that there is a bit of extreme heat. So that is one. Then unpleasant monsoon at times. Then also, but then we have long sunshines, which really give the flavor and aromas to the wines. Also, the bit of cooler nights and cooler climate affects the acidity in the grapes as well. And so there are a bit of challenges in front of the viticulturists and the producers to protect their wines from scorching and monsoon, and but still, as I said, the producer since 2-3 decades, this wine industry is there, and it's no more in the primitive stage now, I would say, because the trend is increasing. First of all, the major markets are the Mumbai, which is the biggest market for wine consumption and sales, and the awareness, because a lot of urban, it's a metro city, so people are aware about the wine drinking habits, and also it's just nearby to Nasik and Pune. So Maharashtra being the biggest wine producer. Mumbai is again a major market. We also have the second market is Delhi, New Delhi, because a lot of embassies and a lot of bureaucratic offices being a capital city of the country, a lot of concentration of offices is there, and so second wine consuming city is Delhi.
If sorry if I interrupt you, if you would, if you talk with an importer, for example, what would you say to describe Indian wines and why they should give Indian wine a chance?
Definitely. So I have a bit of more slides here. So this is the Nasik, area, and you can see the Sahyadri ranges behind. So this is the Sula vineyard, and you can see that this is very typical climate. Very, this really bestows good flavor, aromas to the wines that Sula makes, and the soil also over here is very peculiar, and it gives the minerality to the wines over here. That is one thing. So just a bit of Sula has also been, basically India is an agricultural country, and we see in rural. So women in the rural areas work. Sula has been able to generate empowerment to them. So these are the boutique wineries in Nasik. This is Shandon, and just at the foothills of the Sahyadri, they produce the sparkling wines over here. This is York again, which is good enough. I mean, it's a small boutique winery with a very passionate winemaker here. This one is Valone, just beside the lake. This is Soma, again, so there's a cultural event that is happening at the amphitheater here. So a lot of people are now, because Nasik is just nearby to the metro cities, people are now wanting to have the wine experiences, and they are moving to the wineries. So for the destination weddings or for events, it's a new thing. So even tourism is gearing up in Indian wine industry here. So we have, Fratelli, this is again around Pune, and the wines that are produced here, so Sangiovese and the Cabernet Sauvignon, these are the great varieties that have really flourished well over here. The winemakers are Italian, and so it's again a lovely wine portfolio that they have. So this is one of my favorite and a very popular wine in India as well. That is Sete. Sete meaning seven, and again it's made up of. So you can find the autograph given by the winemaker Masi as well. This is a signature wine, and it's again made of a blend.
And you were mentioning that it's an Italian style wine. Made by Italian winemaker, but it's Italian style wine. Yeah.
They say it is more like in line with the Tuscany wines.
Okay.
Yeah, and produced.
That's very interesting.
This is the super premium wine of Fratelli that they're producing, and this is they have reserve and they have a lot of categories in this set as well.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. You made me feel to try. So it's that's what I wanted to to ask. So it's fun.
You should.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's
There's
a last winery. So this is Karnataka, as I said, the second wine producing state, and these are the Hampi Hills that you can see, and just at the foothills of the Hampi Hills, you'll find small wineries. So almost 17 wineries are there in Karnataka, and this is the Grover Zampa, again the third most important winery of India that they produce wines here, and
okay. Okay, I think that I believe that there are a couple of questions. Marco, do you want to join us? Please unmute you.
Hello, everybody. There are some questions that arrived.
Yeah, okay. Okay, go ahead.
So there is one. The first question is for Pierre. So I ask you, Pierre, to unmute. And the first question is, if you think, I read directly, Pierre, do you consider the La Place de Bordeaux system still paramount for the correct brand building and distribution of a medium-sized winery such as yours?
That's a good question. Well, you know, historically speaking, the Place of Bordeaux has been famous to spread wines all over the world because this is part of the history of Bordeaux. Don't forget that Bordeaux was part of the United Kingdom till the 14th century. So that's why Bordeaux has been famous all over the world, because thanks to the English, we've been spread through the Commonwealth. So they have the strength of Bordeaux is indeed the system that we have. We have the productions, and then we have the distributions, and the distribution is spreading the wine. So after, indeed, the question could be, is it the right strategy for medium-sized estates or small boutique and crafted estates facing the big names as could be Lafite, Mouton, and some big productions, wineries that are tremendous? Well, it depends, you know, we cannot be strong in all countries. And when you small boutique wineries as Croix de Labrie, of course, we have some customers with whom we deal with, but some other, they want to have a better distribution because they used to work with some specific négociants, and the négociants have also the distribution with a sales team who travel the world to support the distributors, to support the customers, and we control, we know all our customers, so it is a win-win party. Indeed, it could be a good opportunity to do it by yourself. Totally agree with that. But then you have also to travel the world, so it's cost distribution. So I think it has to be a balance, and beside that, the system of distribution of Bordeaux is also strong because we have, well, a lot of brands famous in the world. We also distribute Burgundy wines famous in the world. We also distribute some wines from Italy, from Spain, from the New World, from the US or New Zealand. So this history background is quite strong. So I think it's a question of balance and the choice of strategy of each winery.
Okay, so I think that's you perfectly answered. Does not exist a unique business model, but is based on the single strategy of the single vineyards. So everybody has to think about it. Thank you, Pierre. The second question is for Nadia. Nadia, if you can unmute. So Nadia, what's the best vintages for the Amarone Riserva in the last years, or at least what's your favorite vintages?
Good question. Yes, the last vintages that we released was 2013, and one of my favorite vintage. And also I like a lot, if I go behind the vintages of our Amarone Riserva as 1998, 2000, 2003. So was very, very excellent and great vintages for us.
2003 was the extremely hot season, right? It was crazy. I remember that.
Yes, but was a hot season, but during the harvest and in particular during the appassimento, when the process that we dry the grapes was very, very good. And we do a very particular selection of our best grapes as the Corvina Veronese, because for producing Amarone, we have to use the indigenous grapes. One of the most important is the Corvina Veronese.
Corvina, yeah,
yes.
Yes. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the last question, Alberto.
Sorry.
And it's for Emma and Sheetal both. So we start from Emma. Emma, do you think that this kind of COVID-19 that generate a sort of nationalism in each country in the world will increase the consumption of Chinese wine in China and on Indian wine in India?
That's a good question.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. For the moment, we have a little bit obstacle because we selling to the restaurant, the hotel, then part of it is still not open or closed totally. So we're trying to figure out. Then for import wine, I think China has a lot of stock still. Then here's both. I don't know if they are still continue to come. Then anyway, China will open the door September, so I don't think it's a problem. But
Okay.
it's for Chinese people has confidence in local product, because Chinese food and beverage, meaning it's low quality. So
but anyway, I had the impression every time I talk to a Chinese sommelier that okay, it's nice to talk about like Italian wines, about Barolo, but when talking about their own Chinese made wine, their eyes, become brighter, and they are really they feel of pride, and that's this is what exactly made me willing to understand more. So that's why I have this feeling that this pride in this moment, like the person was saying, I think that it's gonna somehow produce some good effects on sales of Chinese wine on the Chinese market.
That's great. So we give the question to Sheetal.
Yeah.
Do you think domestic wine will increase in India due to this COVID-19 or not?
So to some extent, I think this is true, but you know what, there is always, so in India, 70 to 75% wine consumption is the domestic, and the rest is the imported wine consumption. So there is always a biasness towards a particular wine style, a particular wine from a particular country of origin, and it will always be there. I mean, COVID or pandemic, it's just timely, I don't think so overall because of this.
Because it's already very big now, the consumption of domestic wine in India, much more than China.
Yeah.
So it's fine. To me, we answer all the questions. I
think that we can pass the ball to Natalie.
Please, Natalie. Everybody are waiting for you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. I am a wine journalist based here in Hong Kong. And I run my own website, VINO JOY News, which covers the wine market in China, including Hong Kong and rest of Asia. So today I will be talking a little bit more about, the reality in China's wine market versus the perception of what's the China market like. And I'll outline a few key trends for 2020 as well in the context of coronavirus pandemic. So I'll share my screen here. Let's see. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Let's start the slideshow.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, great. So basically, when I write about China's wine market, a lot of people, the first question people always ask is, how big is China's wine market really? How much wine people consume? what's the size, because you see or you read the reports from the Nexpo or IWSR saying by 2020 China is going to be surpass France to become the second biggest wine consumer in the world. So of course it's very encouraging, but when it all comes down to figures, comes down to data, so how big is the market really? So let's look at the set of figures. When we talk about China's alcoholic beverage market, first thing that comes to mind is not really wine. You have to bear in mind, in China, majority of drinkers, when they say they drink, the first thing is actually baijiu. What is baijiu? It's a Chinese distilled fiery spirit. And then we talk about beer, and then we talk about Chinese huangjiu, yellow wine, and then wine is a tiny portion of the market. So I look at the figures published by this Chinese research firm called Qianzhan. So they published data for baijiu, for beer, wine, and other alcoholic beverages in 2009, 2017, 2018, and 2019, just to give an idea of the market share for different categories. So this is one interesting thing. In 2009, baijiu's market size valued at 200 billion RMB, which is roughly about 28 billion US dollars, followed by beer and wine at the size of 50 billion RMB, which is roughly 7 billion. So when you compare wine's market share in the overall drinks market, that's roughly 12.5%. That's tiny. So if you compare that to France, Germany, US, that's a tiny portion. Fast forward to 10 years, to 2019, as you can see, every category expanded, particularly with baijiu. Baijiu exploded to 737.3 billion RMB, which is over 100 billion US dollars, followed by beer, followed by wine. So one interesting thing you can notice is, over the past 10 years, wine market size doubled from 50 billion to 94.2 billion. At the same time, if you look at wine's market share in China, that's 8.2%. So you compare with 10 years ago, it actually dropped. So that's not, really a good sign for, the wineries who are making wines in China, or wineries who are looking to export to China. I ask everyone who's watching this to bear this set of figures in mind. This will help you to understand a lot of consumption behaviors in China when we talk about wine market. Soon I'll delve a little bit more into this, and later you'll understand a little bit more. So let's go to the next slide. So
you are waking up from dreaming, yeah? You are aware of this.
Yeah, exactly. So, so it's not really encouraging, but I think it's a good thing for people to understand what's the reality.
You're right. I promised that you would be straight, so that's it. Bye. Go ahead.
I'm not gonna be, talking like wine intelligence, giving you all those rosy pictures and you pump millions into the market where you don't see any returns, and you wonder at the end of the day, what happened, what went wrong. So, so what does 2020 look like? So IWSR actually this month published a report saying global drinks industry is not expected to rebound to pre-COVID level until 2024. So meaning that, the gradual resumption or to pre-crisis level is going to be slow, and roughly it's going to take 5 years. So that's something people have to bear in mind. This is not referring just to wine market, but also refers to, spirits, vodka, gin, beer, everything. Also, who is a deputy of China Alcoholic Drinks Association. This is an association that regulates and manages the country's alcoholic beverage. And he said 2020 is going to be toughest year for China's wine market of the recent 10 years. So this is another warning sign just to prep people, you know, the market is challenging this year and you have to make realistic adjustments and have realistic expectations as well. And also Alberto Fernandez of Taurus China, which is one of the top 10 wine importers in the country, says wine sales will drop by at least 20% for 2020. And all those, actually, all those information reports are published on my website. So if you want to know a little bit more details, I, you know, linked all the sources below so you can have a look. So this is another thing that I got asked quite a bit when people talk about China's wine market, because we see reports on Decanter, Wine Spectator saying, you know, wine sales during pandemic in UK, in France, in Italy, in the US, all increased. So did it translate for China's wine market? Did people drink a little bit more during the pandemic? Unfortunately, reality in China is drastically different from, you know, US or UK. What happened is in China, wine is not a necessity. It's not something people reach out for, you know, on a regular basis. If they want to drink, like I said, now we refer back to the first slide that I did. Wine only constitutes roughly 8% of the market share. When people want to drink, it's baijiu, it's beer, and then it's wine. So bear that in mind. Wine is not a necessity. And during the pandemic outbreak in China, from late January to April, on-premise consumption in restaurants and bars collapsed like anywhere else in the world. Home consumption becomes the only scenario for wine consumption during the lockdown period, meaning that people are basically, you know, if you have stocks at home, that's how you drink wine. Or if you order a little bit online, you get delivered, but that's tiny portion of the consumption we're looking at. And American data, consumer data giant Nielsen actually published a report and says frequent drinkers identified as consumers who drink at least 5 times a week increased their alcohol consumption during the lockdown. There are many male consumers aged between 30 and 40 from first tier and second tier cities such as Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. And note, once again, this is where I, you know, reference back to the first slide that I did. Nielsen report says for frequent drinkers, the main alcohol consumption comes from baijiu and beer. Once again, wine is not the main category. That's why I think, you know, having that information in the background helps you to understand why Chinese consumers behave the way they do.
Is that possible that, sorry if I interrupt you, is that possible that it's because not everybody perceives wine not only as a social drink, but also, I mean, in Italy or in other countries, we also drink wine just to, you know, just relax or just to.
That's completely. Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's a very good question, because in China, people don't, you know, drinking alone by yourself, it's not usual. You know, wine is a social drink, and the most, you know, common scenario for people to drink is, you know, a banquet, a business dinner, when you're out with your friends, you have a formal setting or kind of relaxing setting. In Chinese, we call it like a ceremonial drinking, because you want to have this kind of ritual. It's quite unusual for someone to open a bottle of wine at home and drink. I mean, there are people doing it, but it's a tiny portion of the consumption. Yeah.
Okay, good. But it's important to understand that. I think that's at least as an export manager, or I believe that I need to keep this in mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's something that people need to pay attention to, but gradually. Yeah. More people who are, especially with females, before they go to bed, and there's advertisements saying that, you know, if you drink a glass of red wine, helps with the, you know, rich in antioxidants, it's good for beauty, anti-aging. So we see a little bit a new trend of people like Lady Penguin, one of the biggest online influencers, pushing for small format bottling wines for people to drink, you know, before bedtime, and just for that. But it's a new trend, it's picking up. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And that next slide, I will talk a little bit more about Chinese wine versus imported wine. Like Sheetal previously, she said in India, domestic wine, roughly contribute to 70 to 75% of the country's overall wine consumption, and it is the same with China. So when we talk about wine consumption, people always think, okay, maybe 50 it is imported wine, 50 it's Chinese wine. Reality is in China, that's roughly 70% wines consumed being Chinese wines. Mostly coming from Shandong, Hebei, and Ningxia, Xinjiang, of course. So here's a set of figures. China ranks as the world's 7th biggest wine producing country, according to OIV. Production volume in China has been declining every year for the past few years. And in 2019, I think total production dropped to 7.2 million hectoliters. So you can see, domestic production is coming down. Wine imports is coming down as well. So it's quite challenging for people, but certainly we're seeing, like you said previously, wine sommeliers, they're very excited when they talk about domestic wines. And the same, you see in Ningxia, in Xinjiang, those premium regions of, wine producing areas in China, like Emma's winery, SILVERHEIGHTS, are really picking up quality of wine and winning international medals, and then, they are getting more validation from Chinese consumers. So I think that's something to look out for. One thing you can see is China's top 10 bottled wine importing countries. Australia in the past year has surpassed France to become China's biggest wine supplier. I think this is a trend to look out for. Pierre talked about Bordeaux Premier's reception in the market, and this year certainly we're going to see more of that impact in the market. But certainly I think Australia is going to continue to strengthen their lead over France this year. And the next one is, talking about trend. I think a lot of people have to understand China's consumers are very media savvy. They're very technology savvy. Everyone is on mobile phone. Everyone is using social media like WeChat, Xinglang Weibo, all those other things. As you can see, online shopping and social media marketing really stood out during the pandemic. When you cannot go out to buy wines, in the retail store, what you do is you go online, go to WeChat, go to Tmall to order wines and have them delivered. It's quite efficient. And, online shopping, China's most popular social media app, WeChat, has roughly 1.15 billion monthly active users. I mean, think about the massive scale of this. China, we're looking at a country of population of 1.4. My 80-year-old grandmother is using WeChat every day, even to buy things and, have things delivered to her. So this just, tells you how ubiquitous it is for social media, like WeChat, in every Chinese life. And Xinglang Weibo is another very important social media app, has roughly about 400 million monthly active users. And TikTok, Douyin, those are live streaming apps that are widely used in China. They have roughly about 800 million users. And you have Kuaishou as well, another homegrown video streaming app that has 400 million monthly active users. So who are the, when we talk about the scale of China's online shopping platforms or social media, so another question people want to ask, so who are the ones actually selling wines and pushing the sales online? So here I outlined 3 famous online influencers, not just selling lipsticks or anything. The strength of those influencers is that they can sell any commodity. For instance, like Li Jiaqi, he's famous for selling lipsticks at the very beginning. But what happens is, like, you know, those influencers can branch out basically into every category. Like they can sell rice, they can sell, you know, olive oil, but their followers follow them. For instance, so Li Jiaqi worked with Great Wall. It's one of China's biggest Chinese wineries owned by the state under COFCO. He sold 20,000 cases of wines just within 30 seconds. So think about that. You know,
Wow.
yeah, see, this is something people perhaps don't understand, but once again, that's China. You think about the scale, you think about the number of consumers, and that's a record that's unbreakable till now. And Via, another influencer, was ranked as the #1 host on China's biggest e-commerce platform, Tmall. She sold 30,000 cases of wine within 1 minute. Once again, that's staggering. You can't think about, you know, the scale. That's like 1 year's you know, sales revenue for a mid-sized wine importer in China.
This makes me think. Sorry if I interrupt you again. Sorry. Make me think two things. One is how important is the reputation of in China, because the reputation of these people can really move the whatever they are asked to sell, because people just trust them.
Yeah, exactly.
And because which is something different from, for example, from Europe. So that's important to understand from on the European side. And then also how important is to build up your own reputation on the market. So which is something that a lot of companies missed in when approaching China. So yeah, that's very important to understand. Yeah.
Very, very important. If you're a winery, you're looking to sell to China, the first thing you have to ask yourself, are you communicating with Chinese consumers in their own language? Are you present on social media platforms like the ones that I just mentioned? You know, what are the strategies you're using? You know, are you doing live streaming? Who are the key makers? Who are the influencers? Do you know those people? How do they work? How much they charge? How effective are they? These are the things I think as a winery looking to expand into China have to ask themselves. Like Emma, SILVERHEIGHTS, they are very good on WeChat. They post regularly on the contents. You can see what is going on with the winery so instantly, and then they have their the wonderful thing about WeChat is that, you know, it's not just a content publishing app. It can link to e-commerce website, and also it can allow yourself to build your own mini program. What does that mean is that, you know, if someone's reading the content post on SILVERHEIGHTS, for instance, oh, you know, I like this wine, I like to try it. Instantly you click on it, it links back to an online wine shop, and you can purchase and, you know, fill out the information. Next day it's delivered to your door. So that's something I don't see a lot of, you know, like Facebook or Instagram are able to do at the moment. So
you're right.
I think that's the strength of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Not social media platforms definitely build a presence there. Live streaming, like I mentioned, I think this is something you have to explore a little bit more. According to Chinese consulting firm, there are over 524 million live streamers in China, and sales generated from live streaming this year expected to reach RMB 900 billion. That's over 126 billion US dollars. So this just gives you an idea of the scale of live streaming sales today in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also trading down, this is something I tell wineries or all people that I'm talking to, especially now in the context of global recession. Consumers are going to become more cautious, you know, with spending. This means you need to think about your wine range and price points. What are the wines you want to push? You have to be conscious that people are going to tightening up the wallet. China's GDP in the first quarter fell roughly by 7%. And China this year, I mean, if you're reading, following the news, they didn't even set a GDP target. So that's something you have to be conscious about as well. Wine merchants of various scales within China have severe cash flow problems with backlogs of stock that yet to be depleted. Like I think Emma mentioned that as well. You know, a lot of the restaurants and bars are closed. You can't make sales for quite a long time. And also for imported wines, you have wine merchants still have old stocks and meant to be sold in January for Chinese New Year that are not yet depleted. So this is something people have to be aware of as well in terms of planning for the rest of the year. So that's it. That's my presentation. And
fantastic.
Yeah, and if you want to know a little bit more about China's wine market, you can always subscribe to my newsletter or just go to the website. And,
definitely, you have to do it.
Thank you, Natalie.
No problem.
I have a couple of questions from our friends direct to you that can be super interested. One is, what's the price point that makes sense in using this kind of KOL and live streaming? I mean, what's the price point of the bottle that on the average is sold, let's say, by Lady Penguin? And what's the cost of this kind of KOL per minute?
I think cost is a tricky thing. I don't know the figures, exact figures they're charging, but yeah, it's not going to be cheap because you know you're looking at people like Li Jiaqi. They have millions of fans, roughly 50 million followers on their platform. For instance, L'Oreal is working with him to push like lipstick. I mean, people probably will pay $500,000 just for one live stream, but he can generate maybe like 5 million or 10 million lipstick sales. So you look at in that perspective, it's not going to be cheap. But that's just me giving you an example. And once again, you look at the products, the wines, for instance, they sold for Li Jiaqi and Via for Great Wall. I think the wines roughly 100 RMB, so which is about 15 euros. 15 euros, yeah, about that 15, 12 euros. So it's not. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very important information. I mean, for all the people that are following us, especially from Europe, from the wineries that want to enter in this kind of important market. The last question for you, it's even more difficult. That is, dearest Natalie, what will be the imminent effect of the ending of special economic status of Hong Kong from United States list? Means if US will remove Hong Kong from the special status list, what will be the effect on the wine market?
I think there are a few things to think about. Right now, Hong Kong enjoys the tariff-free. Right now, Hong Kong has the wine tax-free policy on all the imported wines. But if US removes that trade status, for instance, will US slap the same kind of tariffs on the wines exported to China and to Hong Kong? Because at the moment, China and US are still in the trade war. I mean, we tend to forget about that because now we have the pandemic and we have the protests in the US. So once they remove that, first is, are they going to increase the tariffs on wine, on American wines, particularly Napa wines, the Screaming Eagle, the cult wines? And a lot of the times, a lot of the wines enter Hong Kong, ended up in China illegally, let's say. So that's gonna play a part in the price of the wines, first of all. And secondly, if US removes Hong Kong's special status, does it make sense to have your wines exported to Hong Kong and then re-exported to mainland? This is something people have to think about. How does Hong Kong compare to Shanghai or Shenzhen if you go directly into that part of the market? For me, it doesn't make that much sense. If US removes Hong Kong special trade status, that you still invest in Hong Kong and then think about using Hong Kong as a gateway to China, that doesn't make sense to me at all. If you're planning long-term, might as well go direct into the market to invest, to build up. One thing I would ask people to pay attention to is the cross-border e-commerce trading.
It is doing very well. Let's say Wine Plus is an example of this.
Yeah, definitely.
with cross-border e-commerce trading, the country is basically saying we're not gonna, like Pierre previously mentioned, for French wine, Italian wine, the taxes combined is roughly about 46%. But with cross-border e-commerce, they increased the limit for per order and your annual spend as well, and then reduced the taxes to roughly about 23%. So compared with that, that's a huge advantage. So you have to think about, okay, so if you were not doing that way, what are the other options you were looking at? And also this year, China expanded quite a few pilot zones for cross-border e-commerce. So these are the things I think people can pay attention to and do a little bit more research and to increase, basically reduce your spend on wine logistics.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Very clear as usual.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Even though there is one last question that just arrived, it was which media channel respective wine producers are planning to use to reach consumers in homes?
Which media channel?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It's a question from Lukasz. It says which media channel the wine producer are planning to use to reach the consumers.
Oh, you mean the social media or like?
Yeah. I think that's the question.
Okay, so basically, Tmall is the biggest retail platform online, and it's owned by Alibaba. It's the biggest e-commerce company in the world.
Yeah.
There are some thresholds opening a Tmall flagship in China. For instance, you have to have business registration, mainland bank account. So there are some documents and paperwork that you need to go through in order to open a e-commerce store. But if you cannot do that, what you can do is you can find, ask your local importer whether they already have a presence on Tmall.
Yeah.
Or maybe partner and do something together. And also look into WeChat, because WeChat allows you to do mini program as well. So like, Emma, SILVERHEIGHTS, they did this thing with a mini program, which enables to buy wines directly. So you can definitely look into that as well. There's some paperwork once again, but you just have to, get someone who understands, if you have a local importer already in China, so work with them to sort that out.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Oh, wow. We got at the end. So it was incredible and so interesting. We talked with Pierre Courdurié, who explained us about Bordeaux and the struggle that all European wines, not only Bordeaux or French wines, are having in Asia. But when you deliver a product of quality and you deliver content for media communication is something that you definitely can do. Nadia Zenato explained us what they're doing in terms of co-branding to increase the reach to the consumer and try to make a much better communication with the final customer and then the consumer as well. And then we talked with Emma Gao and her fantastic, fabulous winery, producing according to the old teachings of the old masters of Tao. I like the idea of you doing Tai Chi every morning. So that's something that everybody should consider. And then Sheetal, you told us about something which very few people know about. So thank you very much for your contribution. And finally, Natalie. Natalie, she's always very, very, very clear in explaining data and make data very easy to understand for everybody. So thank you, everybody, all the panelists and all attendees. I hope that we managed to give you some good ideas and that we managed to increase a little bit your knowledge about the Asian market and the possibility that are still hiding and that need to be explored. So we all share the same situation here with the COVID-19. So we are in Italy we say we are on the same boat. So it's
Yes.
so we
Indeed.
so yeah. So we need to share. We are in the sharing economy phase, you know. So this is this event, this talk show is the perfect example of sharing. So thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
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 Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.